I like to cover cults, and it's particularly interesting to me when I can catch one forming right in front of me. I've known about this one for a while, and I even covered this exact video a long time ago, but I felt like it was time to revisit. Spirit Science is a YouTube channel and a New Age cult that's run by a guy named Jordan Duknix, but he goes by Jordan Pierce. I just want to point out that that's a common marker of a cult. The cult leader changes his name. They also commonly use amorphous, undefined terms like energy or spirituality. Watch for that kind of thing. I'll be pointing it out throughout this video. Here we go.
Man, I love the moon. Would you say the moon is masculine or feminine?
Spiritually speaking, I've most often heard that it embodies female energy.
What does female energy mean? The definition of energy is as follows: power derived from the utilization of physical or chemical resources, especially to provide light and heat to work machines. Nothing about gender for energy, and nothing about how a celestial body can embody energy of a specific gender. It doesn't make any sense, but it appeals to our mystical nature. Let's continue.
Me too, but we have Mother Nature full of life and creation. Wouldn't the moon be the father?
Yeah, you might think so. However, our celestial father is most definitely the sun. It's because of our father above and our mother below that allows all of this life to exist. The moon is actually neither, which makes me think it must be more like a cousin.
Where is he getting this information? Is there any kind of substantiated proof of this? And what does he mean by our celestial father the sun? Mother Nature is a common colloquialism, so it's easy for you to accept that the Earth is female without knowing anything about what that means, because you've heard the Earth loosely referred to with a female pronoun in a commonly used slang term. What he's saying right now is meaningless and has no proof of any kind to back it up.
But perhaps what's more curious about old Lady Luna is that her existence has actually never been explained by modern science.
Who needs science to explain things?
Right, I mean, I know you don't. But isn't it interesting that using science we can build nuclear weapons, but cannot even explain this most ancient entity that floats at our doorstep?
I'm going to dismiss the brazen disregard for our centuries-old method of gaining knowledge about the world around us. But what does he mean we can't explain it? We can explain plenty of things about the moon. We can explain its density, we can explain what it's made of, and we can even explain how it got there pretty accurately. Science is always subject to change when we gain new information, but we can have a very high degree of confidence about a lot of things with regards to our knowledge about the moon.
What's stranger, the moon is actually far too big to be a natural satellite of the Earth. If I'm not mistaken, there is not a single other planet in our solar system whose moon compares in ratio to our own Earth-Moon ratio. Our moon is actually larger than Pluto.
I'm not sure what relevance that has. That's why Pluto was downgraded to a dwarf planet, because it's not big enough to be a real planet. Notice how he said, if I'm not mistaken. He's setting himself up as an authority through this whole video, but at certain parts he shows himself to be fallible, thus making himself appear more trustworthy. That's another cult mind control tactic. It seems insignificant, but this kind of thing adds up.
The current leading theory in science is that something like a Mars-sized planet-like rock came out of nowhere and hit the Earth, and then it became the moon. And when those physics didn't work out, they came up with a new theory that said that the same planet-like rock-like thing hits the planet, bounces around, and then hits it again, and then becomes the moon. Needless to say, the physics still didn't work.
Okay, so they said the current leading theory is that a planet slammed into Earth, but it didn't work, so they came up with a new theory. If that's the case, then it isn't the current leading theory. The second theory they presented was exactly the same as the first, except it bounced into it again. This isn't making any sense. For reference, the actual leading theory isn't quite what they depicted here. Did you notice how they depicted something slamming into the Earth? The Earth shattered, implying it's hard and brittle. That is not what it was like at the time. Here's a video of what we suspect happened. When the Earth was forming, there wasn't as much hard material on it as there is now. It was more viscous. When something very large slammed into it, large pieces melded together with the giant asteroid or whatever it was, and it began circling the Earth. We have to remember that at this time there was no atmosphere. As a side note, this is real artwork to me. Imagine what it would have been like if the Catholic Church hadn't been the driving motivation for Michelangelo's paintings on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. It's a goddamn shame that we lost out on so much potential.
Well, what the hell? Is there more?
Well, now that you ask, have you ever heard anything about it being hollow?
Hollow?
Yeah, I've got the details somewhere here.
Okay, now we have officially debarked for Crazy Town.
Let's see. Here it is. In November of 1969, NASA crashed a lunar module into the moon, causing the equivalent of 1 ton of TNT. NASA said that the moon reverberated like a gong for half an hour. Then they did it again, causing an impact of 11.5 tons of TNT, and it rang like a bell for over 4 hours. It vibrated in a way as if it were hollowed out, with giant hydraulic damper struts inside of it.
Wowsy wheezy.
None of that is true. NASA never said any of that. It didn't reverberate like anything. We have tested its density, and we found that it's 3.34 grams per cubic centimeter. For perspective, water's density is 1 gram per cubic centimeter, and granite is 2.75 grams per cubic centimeter. So it's pretty dense. And by the way, I wanted to point a couple things out here. A cult will twist facts, like they did by depicting the Earth as shattering when something ran into it, or flat out make them up, just like claiming NASA said it reverberated like it had giant struts inside of it.
Want to know something else?
Always.
The surface of the moon contains minerals like titanium, but also processed metals like brass and mica. It also contains something called uranium-236 and neptunium, which are both minerals that have never been found to occur naturally. Uranium-236 is a long-lived nuclear waste that appears in spent nuclear fuel, and neptunium is a radioactive byproduct of nuclear reactors when plutonium is being created.
Mica isn't a processed metal, it's a mineral. See, they aren't even sitting there heavily researching this information. If they had, they would have been far less likely to confuse a mineral with a processed metal. Also, neptunium isn't an element. It doesn't exist. I assume they were referring to neptunium. Neptunium does occur naturally. We find it in uranium mines all the time. Oh, and by the way, uranium occurs naturally too. We find it in rocks. We have uranium mines just like we have coal mines. But they were talking about a very specific isotope of uranium, uranium-236. That doesn't usually occur naturally. It's found in spent fuel rods from nuclear reactors. So does that show up on the moon? I don't know. It's impossible to tell because every search result was titled something like, "Irregularities showing Earth's moon was engineered?" Or, "Is this the real reason NASA never returned to the moon? Shocking claim over what stops us." I couldn't find any scientific research papers claiming it was found on the moon. Not to say they don't exist, I just couldn't find them, so I'm going to withhold belief until proven otherwise. And by the way, if anybody is interested in finding out for yourself, you can go to scholar.google.com and search through that. It's a search engine for scholarly articles. Let me know in the comments or on Twitter if anybody finds the answer.
This means that at least some of the rocks on the moon are most likely synthetic. And while it's only a theory, I wouldn't say it's illogical to come to the conclusion that it could be artificially created.
That's really intense.
He's misusing the word theory here. A theory is when we take a bunch of facts, compile them into an idea about why those facts are happening, and test things to see if the idea actually stands up. To become a theory, it has to be falsifiable. For example, we could prove the theory of evolution wrong tomorrow if it could be shown that mutations don't occur, or if we found a rabbit in the Precambrian era, or if it could be shown that organisms with identical DNA have different genetic traits. Evolution has not been falsified yet, but the fact that those things have not been demonstrated means that if evolution is falsified, whatever replaces it will almost certainly be extremely similar, i.e., evolution is here to stay. It's subject to tweaking and change as we learn more, but it's on extremely solid ground.
Also, you know the craters on the moon?
Intimately.
Well, craters should vary in depth due to the size and impact of the various space rocks that hit them, right? We can tell that there was a difference in the meteor sizes that hit the moon by the diameters of each crater. And yet, how come all of them, across the board, are the same depth?
Mother of God, an impenetrable shell!
That's not true. They do vary in depth, wildly. The deepest crater is the Aitken Basin, which is about 1,600 miles in diameter and 8 miles deep. They're just making vacuous claims again, completely void of substance. Once again showing they're masters at manufacturing propaganda.
Oh, here, read this part here.
David Icke's research led him to shaman around the world. Zulu tribes speak of the moon being an egg. They symbolize it to be an egg for good reason. The ancient African and Sumerian legends talk of two brothers, Wawan and Mpanku, that emptied out the yolk and rolled the moon across the sky to the earth and caused cataclysmic events hundreds of generations before our time.
David Icke is that dude who believes that the world is being run by lizard people. Automatically discredits anything he says. It's like going to an eye doctor who believes in the stork theory of reproduction. I'm sure he's great at his job, but I'm going to question his judgment on literally everything from that moment on. Aside from that, why would I want to believe anything an ancient culture from 6,000 years ago had to say about our universe? They have nothing credible to say on the subject. We have tools and methods far beyond what they had. We know far more about our reality than they ever could.
I'm not sure how it fits, but this says here that the rocks on the moon are older than the Earth itself.
Heavens.
Sure, that's because we have tectonic plates which basically recycle the rock on the surface. That doesn't prove your theory that some dudes put it there for us. Keep trying. Are you guys starting to see a trend here? Generally discrediting what we think we know about things to create doubt in people so that we're more willing to accept basically anything they say on the subject? Another cult mind control strategy. Oh my god, I have to research like every other sentence they say. I'm splitting this into 2 videos. Part 2 will be out soon. Thanks for watching, guys.